Gordon Hall in Dexter, Michigan, was commissioned by Judge Samuel William Dexter and is the finest remaining example of Greek Revival architecture in the state of Michigan, its most notable feature being the two-story, six-columned Doric front porch. Judge Dexter came to Michigan from Athens, New York in 1824 after the death of his first wife, Amelia Prevost, and a second son, Augustine. His impression of Washtenaw County was very favorable, and he decided to settle. He purchased over 3,500 acres in the county and established a settlement at the confluence of the Huron River and Mill Creek, naming it Dexter, in memory of his father, Samuel Dexter. The elder Dexter was a U.S. Senator, U.S. Congressman, and served in the cabinets of Presidents John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, fulfilling the duties of Secretary of War and Secretary of the Treasury. Judge Dexter's first home in Dexter was a log cabin next to Mill Creek. In 1827, he had a large frame home built on what is now Huron Street, where he lived with his second wife, Susan Dunham. She died in August 1827, leaving an infant son who survived her by 1 month. 1 year later, Judge Dexter married his third wife, 16-year-old Millicent Bond. He and his young bride operated the village of Dexter's first post office out of this home and delivered the mail themselves back and forth to Ann Arbor on horseback. The home was also a gathering place for religious services, temperance meetings, and new settlers to the area. It was torn down in 1939 after the necessary funds to purchase and restore the home could not be raised by the community. As an advocate of the Transcontinental Railroad, the judge donated land in 1837 for the Michigan Central Railroad to pass through Dexter. As construction of the railroad bed leveled his fruit orchard, he decided to move a bit further from the tracks and started planning his magnificent home overlooking Dexter. Today, looking over the active farm fields toward town, you no longer see the sleepy little village that Judge Dexter would have looked out upon. Now trees cover a modern community, but the railroad tracks there since 1841 and the steeple of St. Joseph Catholic Church are still visible. Gordon Hall, named for Judge Dexter's mother's family, was built between 1841 and 1843. The original estate comprised of 1,700 acres. One of the reasons for the long construction period was the difficulty of getting lumber as fast as it could be used. Although some lumber was probably harvested on the grounds of the estate, most of it had to be transported from Flint by ox team and from Detroit by railroad. The home has had only 5 owners since it was built. After Judge Dexter's death in 1863, Millicent continued to live there until her death in 1899, at which time it was sold to Dexter Township resident Thomas Burkett. After his death, it was sold in 1916 to Dr. Charles Crumrine of Detroit, who retired there and made a number of improvements to the very run-down and neglected home. However, he died in 1924, and his son Charles Crumrine Jr. inherited it. He rented out portions of the house and then allowed it to stand vacant for many years. The neglected state of the property was made known to Catherine Dexter McCormick, who was persuaded to buy the estate in 1939, thus bringing it back into Dexter family ownership. Mrs. McCormick, born at Gordon Hall in 1875, was the granddaughter of Judge Dexter and the daughter of his son, Wirt Dexter, a prominent Chicago lawyer. She was a 1904 graduate of MIT, instrumental in the women's suffrage movement, a noted philanthropist, and the sole financial backer of the birth control pill. Mrs. McCormick hired Emil Lorch, Dean Emeritus of the University of Michigan's College of Architecture, to undertake a restoration of the home. Professor Lorch spent many years studying, documenting, and restoring Gordon Hall. However, in 1950, after the death of her husband, Stanley McCormick, Mrs. McCormick donated Gordon Hall to the University of Michigan. At that time, the university tore down the servants' wing on the north end of the home and removed existing stairways, walls, doors, trim, and fireplaces to construct apartments for faculty housing in the main body of the home. Gordon Hall housed University of Michigan faculty and staff for the next 50 years, including President Alexander Ruthven. In 2005, the Dexter Area Historical Society and Museum purchased the home from the university for $1.5 million as a result of a massive community-driven fundraising effort, with the goal of restoring Gordon Hall and opening it to the community. Though no documents remain from the original construction of the home, the U.S. Department of Interior, through the Historical American Buildings Survey, drafted documents depicting the condition of the home in 1934. From these drawings and photos, the original design of the home can be discerned. Photos from a 1941 Dexter Centennial exhibition at Gordon Hall show how Gordon Hall may have been furnished during Judge Dexter's day. The main body of the home originally featured a central hall and staircase, with 2 rooms on either side. Each room had a fireplace on the outside wall. A 9-foot-tall sliding pocket door divided the first-floor drawing rooms on the south side. On the north side was the parlor room Judge Dexter used as a library. West of this was the dining room, connected to a northwest wing which comprised of a kitchen, servants' hall, chamber, pantry, scullery, and shed. The grand staircase in the central hall was made of walnut and linked the basement to the attic through the first and second stories. On the second floor, the same layout allowed for 4 large chambers or bedrooms, each with a closet, which was rare for that time, and a fireplace. The original house interior featured 22 rooms with floors of yellow poplar, 9 fireplaces, and 55 windows with interior shutters. On the main floor, the Dexter Area Museum and Historical Society has recreated Judge Dexter's chamber with artifacts from the museum. The room display features his bed and rocker used at Gordon Hall and is typical of a well-to-do gentleman of that period. Few other pieces of original furniture from Gordon Hall are known to exist. Millicent Dexter's will requested her children take whatever household furnishings they wished, but asked they never have an auction nor sell remaining pieces. All items the children did not want were burned. As Gordon Hall did not have any indoor plumbing when constructed, the slop jar and commode were early conveniences to avoid getting outside to the privy at night. Judge Dexter was a staunch and well-known abolitionist, and there is substantial evidence that Gordon Hall was used as a station on the Underground Railroad, and that Judge Dexter and his sons were conductors and active participants in this moral but illegal activity. The Underground Railroad was a series of stations, which were churches, barns, homes, or any other safe haven along multiple routes to Canada from southern slave states. Conductors on the Underground Railroad provided direction, transport, and refuge for slaves escaping northward to freedom. One of 7 identified routes to Canada took escapees through Michigan on the old territorial road from Indiana and Illinois. In 1850, the Fugitive Slave Law was passed requiring that people who had escaped enslavement be returned to their slave owners. It became even more necessary to hide any activity, and Gordon Hall seems to have been designed for just this purpose. It takes a little imagination to reconstruct the situation and physical structures that were in the basement of Gordon Hall when escaping slaves came looking for sanctuary. The Historic American Building Survey drawings of 1934 show 2 inaccessible rooms in the basement. The persons executing the drawings apparently could find no access to these spaces and may not have known if they were rooms, crawl spaces, or simply unexcavated. There is today a window under the front porch into the largest room. The existing doorways in the thick stone wall that separates the room from the rest of the basement were created during Emil Lorch's 1940s renovation of the home. Another hidden room can now be accessed through one of these modern doorways. The 1934 drawings document the existence of a trapdoor on the south porch which led to a crawl space under the porch and from there, through a small opening in the wall, to a much smaller, low-ceilinged room. The trapdoor was lost when the porch was renovated in the 1940s, although the crawl space and opening, now a window, remain in the wall. All of the evidence suggests that Judge Dexter was not only active in the Underground Railroad, but in fact designed his grand home with the intent to provide refuge to fugitive slaves on their path to freedom. On the second story, the 1934 drawings depict 2 small sewing rooms, one with a front window overlooking the village of Dexter. The original staircase in the center hall had doors leading to the 4 upstairs chambers and the front sewing room. A back staircase in the servants' wing led to upstairs chambers in the northwest wing. The original second story had a total of 10 chambers, enough space to accommodate Judge Dexter and Millicent, their 8 children, and numerous grandchildren. These chambers also provided accommodations for visiting guests and dignitaries. It is known that Presidents James Polk and James Buchanan visited Judge Dexter at Gordon Hall. It is also thought that President Millard Fillmore may have visited the elegant home that his brother, Calvin, helped to create. The most authentic area of the home is the attic. Although the roof and some rafters were replaced in the 1940s renovation, the attic still features its original wide plank flooring and hand-hewn white oak timber framing. The highest side beams run the length of the attic about 50 feet long, while the two lower beams are pegged together with trunnels or tree nails. The 1934 drawings show a small chamber in the attic where the original stairs entered from the second story. The original lath and plaster of this chamber is still visible on the outside wall of the attic. On the remaining plaster are scribbled the names of children, dated 1912, who might have played in this room. There are 4 remaining Greek Revival-style doors, originally from the second story. These doors were used, and therefore rescued, by the University of Michigan as partition doors to divide the attic into 4 storage areas. The 2 existing chimneys in the attic vent the 4 remaining fireplaces in the home. The University of Michigan moved 2 of the 4 original chimneys and 4 of the 8 original fireplaces in the main body of the home during the 1950s remodeling. According to Emil Lorch, Gordon Hall is one of the most impressive of Michigan's temple houses. He continued to state, "On the south side was formerly a conservatory and a formal garden with a garden house." Judge Dexter's granddaughter, Ione Stannard, in a letter described these gardens. The great garden toward the south, kept by an English gardener, and laid off with broad walks from corner to corner and a great grape arbor in the center. With the many varieties of fruits, it was the showplace of southern Michigan for many years. The 4-story tower, built at the request of Millicent in the 1870s after Judge Dexter's death, had one room with a south-facing bay window on each floor. The conservatory and gardens were lost when the tower was built. It is believed that Millicent wanted each married daughter to have her own room at Gordon Hall. It was removed in 1943 by Emil Lorch, as he and others felt it was completely incongruent with the architecture of the original home. The largest barns burned down in 1910, and all other outbuildings were removed during the 1940s and 1950s, except for the storehouse, which remains intact. It stands to the northwest of the home and was built around 1850 by Judge Dexter. He wanted a structure which would securely store a large amount of food and have the ability, with a deep cellar, to keep milk cold. The storehouse is a tribute to the masons of the time. The walls are fully 18 inches thick. The windows are barred, and it has a 9-foot-high cellar as cool as a refrigerator. The storehouse has also been referred to as a smokehouse, and the cellar level may have been used for this purpose at one time. The existing garages were attached to the storehouse by the University of Michigan. A stone privy, one of the 2 privies on the estate, was located on the south side of the home. The 1934 drawings show details of the stone privy, built in 1865. It was quite unique, with 2 doors and 4 holes on each side. It is believed that it was torn down at the same time as the tower. Judge Dexter, Chief Justice of Washtenaw County, Regent of the University of Michigan, publisher of the first newspaper in Washtenaw County, the Western Emigrant, first postmaster and founder of Dexter, temperance leader and abolitionist, passed away on February 6, 1863, at the age of 70. From his 3 separate marriages, he fathered 11 children and was preceded in death by 3 sons. He was buried on the Gordon Hall estate in a private burial ground at the southwest of the home, as was his son Marshall in 1880, his wife Millicent in 1899, and possibly other members of the family. All of the family graves were exhumed and reinterred at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Dexter after the Gordon Hall estate passed out of Dexter ownership. Today, Gordon Hall and its 52 remaining acres are proudly owned and cared for by the Dexter Area Historical Society and Museum. The future of the home resides in its past. Once the gathering place for speeches, picnics, and baseball games, the Dexter Area Historical Society and Museum hopes to return the home back to the community as it strives to restore the home to its former grandeur.